Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this FlaskUp.com interview, and today I'm joined by a familiar face who goes by the name of Koilie. Now, I think I've pronounced that right, hopefully,
That's right.
and some of you may know him from the How to Priest forums, and if you've not seen him there, you've probably seen him streaming over on Twitch TV. He raids in the guild Duality currently, but has been known to raid in Vodka in the past, and he's currently world rank 11, which is nothing to turn your nose up at all. That's a very respectable rank. Thank you for joining me today. So hopefully we're going to talk a bit about patch 5.4, some PvP, because I know you're trying to get into that. A little bit about BlizzCon, even though you weren't able to go. I might just rub that in a bit more. And then we've got some community questions at the end.
Sounds great.
So if we start from the top with patch 5.4. So with the race to world first, Duality were pulling ahead quite well. You were getting world rank 2 and 3 kills at the very start. And then you kind of hit Thok and Siegecrafter Black Fuse. What kind of happened there? Because then you started to get world rank 11 and 13 kills.
Well, it's actually pretty simple. A lot of people don't really understand this, but the way it goes, a lot of guilds will put in extra time on the first week or even the first day of progression. Duality raided from the time raids went live until around 1 a.m. Eastern time on the first night of raiding. That's why we were pushing ranks with Blood Legion in midwinter. However, on the next day after that, we went back to our regular schedule where we didn't begin raiding until 7:30 p.m. in the Eastern time, which we were still able to keep up and pull ranks. It wasn't until we hit the weekend, because Duality is a strict 5-night-a-week raiding schedule. So Thok we were unable to take down on Thursday night and thus lost multiple rankings over the weekend to the guilds that pushed all weekend. And that's basically the story all the way through. Same thing on Siegecrafter. Unable to get a kill on Thursday, come back Sunday, get the kill, So as far as, there they go. As far as rankings go, for if you looked at only 5-night-a-week guilds, I believe they might have been number one or in the top 3 in the world, but no one really looks at it like that. So if you really want to compete, you go all in. Excuse me. My stream viewers will be used to that. You either go all in or you accept what you get with the time you put in. I would like to add a side note here. I actually have left raiding with Duality. I like to say, too, that's not a reflection on that guild at all. The only reason is because Vodka is actually reforming on U.S. Storm Rage back on the Alliance side, going back to our roots. And I'm going to, help make that a reality. So hopefully next year we will be seeing a return of Vodka.
Brilliant. I've missed you from the Cataclysm days. I used to follow quite a bit of the higher-end guilds before I kind of stopped following the Race to World first and then got back into it. It's kind of where have all these guilds disappeared to? We've got new names and all the old ones are disappearing, but it's nice to hear that one of the old names are actually coming back.
Yeah, I believe Paragon is going to be coming back to the main scene too. A lot of the guilds, because we're all going to be forced to be in the same bracket again.
Yeah.
Which is nice. I believe that'll be great for the raiding community.
Yeah, nice and even for once. No more 10 versus 25 man arguments.
Yes.
So the Siege of Orgrimmar, did you enjoy it as a general raid, or?
Yeah, I really did enjoy it, actually. There were a few bosses that I guess I didn't specifically think were that great, but as a whole, I liked the instance. Really, my least favorite boss is Immersius, the first boss of the instance. He's kind of annoying, constantly going underwater, and he never drops the caster trinket.
Yeah, well, yeah. We have a few people moan about that all the time as well.
Yeah.
And then roll cloaks every week, despite having legendaries. It's not very fun.
I rolled his helmet twice. Neither of them were forged, so.
That's lovely. Thanks, Blizzard. So, what was your favourite encounter, and why is it Siegecrafter Black Fuse?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is Siegecrafter Black Fuse, like everyone else.
Naturally.
But it's pretty simple. It's just a well-designed encounter. It's difficult, but not difficult in the way that some bosses in the past have been difficult because they're too much RNG or they're overtuned. This was difficult because it involved a lot. Everyone had a role. You had a lot of mechanics happening at once, but and when you first take a look at the fight, they seem overwhelming. If you watched people do this on heroic PTR testing, you just see, oh my goodness, it's like Memoron's firefighter back in the day. It's like there's flames on the ground everywhere. There's explosions. There's ads. And that is really what the fight is until you learn how to manage individually each aspect of it, after which it's still a difficult encounter, but it's manageable. And that's where it comes in. I think the fight would have been even a little bit harder. I believe a lot of guilds, mine included, we did a strategy where you could repeatedly send rogues and hunters up onto this belt. Anyway, you had to send someone up on this belt roughly every minute or so to kill ads.
Every minute.
And if you don't, you have an extra ad, plus the boss is taking 90% reduced damage for quite some time. Well, when you go up, you get a debuff, but rogues were able to jump up with shadow steps, and hunters could disengage up, thus reducing the amount of players you had to have rotating from the boss to the belt. And this allowed you, it wasn't a huge advantage, but it did give you a little bit of an edge on the enrage timer. I know a few guilds did it without that, or at least one. I was told by one of my friends in Method that they didn't do that, but I know a lot of the guilds did. But like I said, it wasn't a game-breaking thing, but it did just give you a little bit of a DPS edge. But still, even with that ability to sort of cheese a little bit, it was still really great fights.
It's probably one of those things that the top guilds will look at doing as opposed to, say, rank, I don't know, 1,000 plus guilds. It's kind of what separates the best of the best from people that can get ranks but might not look at the best possible output.
Yeah, I was just say I honestly think that anybody that considered it would do it, because it's not really cheating in that you're only using you're within the confines of the game, and
it's not like a bug abuse.
Yeah, it's class mechanics. So
so taking a look at Siegecraft Black Fuse and comparing that encounter to, say, the previous, what is it, 8, 9 bosses, do you think the ones beforehand are a little bit underwhelming in the sense of, say, Fallen Protectors, you've got maybe one more ability or another debuff that you're going to have to deal with? Do you think those kinds of fights are boring and they should look to kind of just add elements to a fight that can completely change it, like what happened with Black Fuse?
Not necessarily, because I mean, with an instance like Siege of Orgrimmar, you're looking at 14 bosses. So if the first 4, 5, 6, even half the instance is a little bit easy, that's to be expected. Some of it might have been a little too easy. For instance, in Duality, we reached Protectors and we one-shot it. I don't think we one-shot a Mercius, but I mean, you can easily die to any random thing in that with the damage. But I think we two-shot it. But yeah, we got to Protectors expecting, okay, we're going to spend a little bit of time here on the first night. Boom, one shot, we're past them, and we're on Norishan. And I believe at the start, Norishan was a little bit cheesable because of something with pet damage and stuff. But even though the fight was easy, we didn't really even need to use that. We didn't know about it. We just did the fight normally, and it fell over pretty quickly. I think Shaw of Pride might have been the first sort of difficult fight, just because there's a lot of mechanics, and there's a lot of player accountability with moving your feet and closing up the rifts and unlocking the prisons, etc. So yeah, I think Shaw of Pride was the first even slightly difficult boss in the instance, followed then by the Dark Shamans. They were a little bit of a problem for some guilds. I don't think we spent too much time on them, but they were a pain.
It's a fun fight, though.
So,
especially when you use your little wings and fly through twirling tornadoes. It's just one for your stream viewers there. No one else will understand that at all.
And
go ahead. If we jump,
I was going to go on to Nazgrim. Nazgrim was actually
Okay.
difficult and not. We almost one-shot Nazgrim. We wiped at about 2% on our first attempt, and then we came back in, and it took us probably 3 or 4 more, maybe 5 more attempts to kill him. But
Hmm.
fairly easy boss, but it can get out of hand quickly at the end.
Yes. Yes, it can. So if we jump to number 14 now, Garrosh Hellscream, how do you feel that end boss compares to, say, Deathwing, I guess, and the Lich King, such as like previous end bosses?
Well, he's no Lich King, but I
Okay.
I like the fight more than Deathwing because you're actually fighting Garrosh. You're not fighting some weird
Yeah.
corrupted old god tentacles coming out of what I guess might be a dragon out there in the mist. I don't really know.
Yeah.
I actually just was watching the recording just yesterday of the race that Vodka and Method had against Dragon Soul, and I, looking at the
Hmm.
fights, I have looking back at them, I have like a little more respect for them. Some of them were pretty nicely designed. They could have been a little bit better, but you hated that instance when you were in there because of all the things
Yeah.
that went on. But as far as Garrosh goes, like I said, I liked it better than sure Deathwing. Lich King was probably my favorite boss encounter I've ever
Hmm.
done. It
It was
was
a
my
brilliant
first
fight.
real uh, satisfying progression kill, and it'll
Hmm.
stick with me forever. I mean, Ragnaros was probably harder, but I was in
Yeah.
my guild was a little bit tighter knit by the time we got to Ragnaros, and I was actually leading the guild by that
Hmm.
point, so it seemed sort of more smooth. But
Okay.
speaking on Garrosh's mechanics himself, though, like I think the design of the fight was pretty nice with all the phases, different requirements for each phase, such as
Yeah.
add AOE, um, massive healing and cooldown, healing cooldown requirements,
Hmm.
tanking requirements with the switching and the explosions at the last phase, and then adding in. I love bosses that add in heroic only phases. Uh, I think those are great.
Yeah.
And Garrosh had one of those where you had to manage lots of mechanics. The fourth phase is
Hmm.
considered fairly easy, but it's one of those phases that can go wrong in an instant, and you have 15 minutes ahead of you before you're back into it. So long
Yeah.
bosses are always difficult because you have to learn. Long bosses with multiple phases rather are difficult because you have to learn each phase, and when you get
Hmm.
to the harder ones at the end, you wipe and you have to go through all the other ones again. And sometimes you wipe in the earlier ones. So
Yeah. So for those of you that do actually follow Koilie, you probably know that he likes to go for rank 1 on damage and healing logs. How's that been going for you in Siege of Orgrimmar? Are you progressing well in that, or?
I've actually gotten quite a few rank ones. I don't know if I currently actually hold any.
Okay.
It's hard to hang on to them,
Yeah.
especially until later in the tier when you're on even footing with everyone for BIS, because some people have better luck. I know
Hmm.
there's priests out there that have 579 item levels, 580 item levels right now. I'm still at
Yeah.
576. I can't get those trinkets. They're a big deal. Um, but yeah, I've hit a few. It also, I mean, I don't really care about maintaining rank 1 so much as getting it on as many bosses as I can each tier,
Okay.
because eventually you reach a point where you outgear the instances or they nerf them, and you start to see these cheesy strategies. For
Yeah.
instance, I had rank 1 on spoils for about 2 days. Really good rank 1. And then the next day or two, I look and I've been beaten by like 80,000 DPS. And I'm like, I already know what I'm going to see when I open this log. Because I look through the logs because I'm
Yeah.
really into this. So when someone beats me,
Hmm.
I go and I break that down and I know why. I already know what I'm going to see. Mind Seer. We reach the point where they're
Yeah.
out gearing up. They're opening all the boxes and AoEing. And,
Hmm.
I could do that too, but it's just not as much fun. It doesn't really show anything. Like your ability
Yeah.
to tab target, multi-target, you know, throwing dots around and using your procs appropriately. That doesn't really show up in a parse where your top damage is Mind Seer and your next damage is Mind Seer Mastery.
Hmm.
But yeah, like I'm still going for them, and I'll still achieve more throughout the tier, I'm sure.
Okay.
But yeah.
So if you see someone with a rank 1 rank that you had the day before. Hello, dog. What would you do, say, in the next reset in order to try and push yourself in order to improve your performance? Would you look at regemming or reforging in any possible way? Not including, say, getting more loot, because that kind of goes without saying, I guess, to an extent.
Well, I don't really tend to go. I put a lot of emphasis on rank ones because I've always gotten them and I've always enjoyed getting more. But to be honest, I don't really specifically like go for them every time.
Okay.
A lot of times I'm just going. I play as hard as I can every single time I raid, and
Hmm.
this is one thing some people they don't really get, and it can get you in trouble with some guilds because some guilds do have players where they will do everything they can to parse, and sometimes it's a detriment to the raid. They will be ignoring mechanics or DPSing things they shouldn't be, and I don't like to parse that way. I mean, I'll do it a little bit when it won't hurt the raid because everyone does
Hmm.
it, but
Yeah.
I like I say this a lot on my stream, but I'm all about pure parse is what I call pure like just
Doing the
you've
fight as it's
contributed
intended,
you've
and
contributed as much as you can to the fight while ranking on that fight. That's how I like to do it.
right.
So I've always been
Okay.
more concerned about the parses on some of the bosses that aren't as easy to cheese. Like back in Dragon Soul,
Hmm.
for instance, I like to parse on like Morchok and Ultraxion and stuff like that, as opposed to Madness and Spine of Deathwing, where if your guild let you AoE ads and didn't actually kill them, on Madness, that's one of the
Hmm.
strategies. They'd have an extra tank tanking ads, and 2 or 3 guys would AoE so they wouldn't be able to kill them. And
Right.
that's not fun. That's just artificially inflating the parses. So I disagree with that tactics, but that's the game.
Yeah. It's a shame you do see that quite a bit, but like you say, it is the game. People are going to do it for that rank one spot.
I've actually had some pretty impressive rank 1 streaks, though. For instance, in Dragon Soul, I held rank 1 Shadow Priest on Ultraxion for nearly 3 months uncontested. And
Wow.
that was unjuiced with no power infusions, no tricks of trade. And over the months, I watched all these other priests, and I would look at their logs. Even when they don't beat me, I'll look to see who got
Yeah.
close. And I looked one time to some Korean priest. He almost got up to me. He was still 1,000 DPS short. Opened up his logs, 34 tricks of the trade, 7 power infusions, and I'm just, it makes me giggle a little because I did something that impressive that it's just you can't do anything to catch it. And
Yeah.
same on Elegon in the first tier of Miss Pandaria. I was the
Hmm.
first Shadow Priest to break 200,000 DPS, and
Oh wow.
6 weeks consecutive after that, I beat my own parses, and so I held that for 6 weeks, only contested by my own self. So I mean, yeah, that's what I'd like to do. I'm good at it, so I hope to continue
Yeah.
doing that in the future.
Nice. So moving a bit away from PvE now, more towards PvP. I was reading through your Twitch stream the other day, the little message boxy things underneath the video itself, and you say that you're going for Gladiator rank in a forthcoming PvP season. How's that going for you? Are you trying to push for it this season before they make any changes for Warlords of Draenor, or are you trying to get it now?
Well, depending on how long the season is, maybe. Right now, I'm just trying to build up experience as a PvPer because uh, a lot of people they look at someone, for instance, who's only ever PvE'd, and they look at him streaming an arena game or something, and you know the, a lot of these players they aren't even that good themselves, but you know how people are on the internet, they'll come in and they'll call you bat or something
Yeah.
because it's easy to critique a game when you're not actually playing it to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, uh, what I try to explain to people is that I'm really good at the game, and people don't understand this, but when you step into an aspect of the game that you're not familiar with, even if you played the game for years, there's
Mm-hmm.
still an aspect of experience and of muscle memory that gets you through a lot of that. Like as I grow more and more in the PvP, I start to just I know what's going to come at me. I know what I'm going to counter what with. I can even say what CC chain I'm about to be hit with and stuff. But when I started out,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what all the classes are going to do to me. I don't know how to counter it. I don't,
Yeah.
and that doesn't mean I'm bad. It just means I don't have the experience yet, and you build that up. That's how it goes. So right now I'm in that experience building phase. I'm starting to try to learn other classes PvP. I'm gearing up my druid right now because I want to try resto because it seems to be fitting better in a lot of threes comps than holy priest, which I'm playing also. So uh, I'd like to go for it as soon as I can, but like I said, building that experience and also coming from a primarily PvE background, I don't really have a lot of friends and high-ranking PvPers to like attach myself onto and kind of roll with. So I'm kind of
Learn from
learning with people that aren't really experienced themselves, or
Mhm. Do you have any PvP experience in past expansions at all, or is this kind of the expansion where you've said I'm going to try something? No, I'm going to try out this element of the game that I might not have done before.
I mean, I've played the game since the Burning Crusade came out, and I mean, of course, I PvP'd.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you not? But honestly, the first time I ever took an actual interest, like in PvP, like I want to gear up and do a little of this, was in the end of Cataclysm. We're
Okay.
sitting in Dragon Soul. It's going on for a while, and I started RBGing as a Shadow Priest, and I had Legendary Staff and Cunning of the Cruel, the AoE Shadow Bolt trinkets. So
Yes.
RBGs as a Shadow Priest, you get on a dot cleave team, and it's super fun. And then, after that, I still hadn't really done much in the way of arena. So I come to Miss Pandaria, and then it's all, vodka. I've got to level up 390s in the first week of the expansion. Then I've got a raid, and then it's like, I don't even know. My body doesn't like me anymore. I've got so much energy drinks in me. So I just never had time to try it again. And then of course, after the tier, vodka kind of disbanded, and I chose not to play for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So I just came back at the end of Throne of Thunder, and I'm not really in a raiding guild, so I just start PvPing again. And it's pretty fun. And that was last season. Then this season comes around, and Shadow Priests aren't really that good in the arenas. I mean, they're okay, but better off healing. So I started healing, and our rating went up a lot because of that, because it's hard to play Shadow Priest. But
Mm-hmm. I've heard. Don't worry.
this is my first season really going at it, and even now I'm still just out of progression, so I haven't hit it that hard. I mean, I've got probably 600 games between twos and threes under my belt this season. So I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've got some in there, but I mean, not like the people that do it every time they play. And they've got thousands of games already and stuff on multiple characters. Like,
Yeah.
so, and
Some.
oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, now that I'm Alliance, I'm maybe gonna have access to a few more of my Alliance PvP friends. So looking
All right.
forward to
Cool.
that.
Yeah. I think if you play with people that have kind of done a lot of PvP in the past, or maybe not so much for PvE, but if you do it with PvP, then you kind of learn from them and
Yeah.
how to play. It just helps you all in the long run, doesn't it? Really.
Yeah, actually, I'm friends with Hodded, so he's actually gonna help me
All right. Cool.
cap my character on Alliance and stuff from time to time, and I'm gonna be playing Druid, so give me some tips and stuff. That should be cool.
Very nice. So one of the questions that I've been asked to ask you is, what is your current most hated class to play against in PvP?
Well, I guess that would depend on what I was playing. If I were playing Shadow Priest, Warrior. They
Okay.
stick to you like glue. You just can't get away from them.
Mhm.
That's about it. I mean,
Just warrior.
you,
That's all.
you juke their pummel, then they disrupting shout you, they
Hmm.
shockwave you, whatever.
Yeah. What can you do? You see all these threads on like MMO Champion. Just nerf warriors, remove them from the game. I've had enough.
I don't
It's
mind them so
brilliant.
much. I actually play with the warrior on my team, so if you
Right.
can't beat them,
Okay.
join.
So you're one of the people eating and drinking the tears of those
Yeah,
forum
but
posters.
when I'm playing my Shadow Priest, I don't like to be around a warrior. When when I'm playing Holy, you know, okay, you're gonna stick to me. Well, I'm just gonna laugh as I bounce around, never casting a spell. Just instants, and hots. But I mean, that's the game. It's never how you want it
Yeah.
to be. If they could take World of Warcraft PvE and PvP and separate them into two different games, they would both be much
Hmm.
more refined games, much more fun to play. But again, then they would be two different games.
Yeah. You never know. Titan could somehow suck the PvP or PvE element out of
Maybe.
WoW, but maybe next year's BlizzCon will know a bit more about that. Now, moving on to BlizzCon, it was 2 weeks ago, I think, something along those lines. I can't really remember, maybe 3 now.
Sounds right.
Like you say, unfortunately, you couldn't be there, but have you had a chance to catch up on all of the information that's been passed around or watch any of the streams from the virtual ticket?
No, I didn't watch really any coverage. Uh, I guess I'm more the type to wait until things are farther progressed before I delve into them, because I don't like to get my mind wrapped around things that are going to change
Yeah.
repeatedly. I tell people this all the time. A lot of what you see in early releases is going to new things will be added, things will be scrapped completely, things will be changed. So,
Mm-hmm.
I like to get a little bit of an idea of what we're looking at. Some of the stuff that seems like it's probably going to be put in for real, but
Yeah.
I like to wait, and once we get closer to release dates, then I'll really start breaking down what's going on and seeing what my class is going to be like, and etc.
Okay. Is there any announcement you have looked into that's kind of got you excited for the expansion or made you look forward to it more so?
Well, as I said earlier, Mythic raiding, the
Yeah.
introduction of one raid setting for all those interested in the highest level of PvE has to offer.
Mm-hmm.
Because what this is going to do for the PvE community is put all of the greatest players in the world back in the same bracket. Except,
Yeah.
well, this is one thing. I want Blizzard to take the Asian servers and put them back on one lockout, same item level gear. Because I want to play
Okay.
against all of these, Eastern players, because
Yeah.
if you put every one of the greatest players in the world back in the same bracket, that's the only way you're going to have a real race like we used to.
Yeah. It makes it a much more entertaining race as well, really, when you've got, say, 20 guilds all pushing for the world first, or as opposed to, say, 10 just going for it, and then you've got 20 Asian guilds or Chinese guilds that have already killed Garrosh in the first week or something like that.
Yeah, it's also like right now you see a lot of guilds this tier, for instance, sort of, I would say, including Duality. Uh, this isn't to say that these guilds aren't good, but they see rises in their ranks over the past like 2 years, like massive rises.
Yeah.
And some of it is attributed to them, getting better and recruiting better players and stuff. But a
Mm-hmm.
lot of those are just guilds missing from the rankings too. And it's gonna be a weird transition to see everyone that's interested in hardcore back in the same bracket and see what it does to the world rankings.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be some surprises, and with Paragon coming back, like I don't know what their roster is going to be like compared to the old Paragon, but I mean they've been tearing up 10-man, and I'm sure they still have
Yeah.
access to some stuff. I mean, people come back to the game sometimes when they hear about new things. I mean, like I said, Vodka reforming, we've got some of the big names coming back. Adam, I don't know if you know Adam, but he's one of the best Holy Paladins to ever play the game. Not just PvE, but he's actually still been playing. He got rank 1 Glad last season, for instance, and the guy's a monster, and he hasn't lost a step. We were doing 10-man Throne of Thunder Heroic last night, and it's nerfed by 20%, mind you, but still.
Yeah.
Find me a Holy Paladin that in 529 item level PvE gear could solo heal Heroic Lei Shen 10-man. I mean, it was pretty impressive. So
You probably couldn't.
probably not. I don't think I would be able to do that. But I mean, I don't know. I've done some pretty impressive healing feats in the past. But just an example, like some of the players that are coming back. We've got Kevin, aka Storm, from way back in the old
Mm-hmm.
Vodka. He left right around the time I joined Vodka a few years back. We've got Rammies. We've got Tetsuru, our old Paladin tank. As for Grafari and the old Guildmaster, he's around, but he so far hasn't committed to coming back. He's into the Hearthstone heavily.
Right.
But yeah, I don't really have a list of all of the people that are coming back, the whole roster, and plus some of them I couldn't say anyway because I don't want to put them out of place with the guilds they're still in, because a few people
Okay.
stick around and
Yeah,
either
yeah.
finish progression with their guild, or if they're already finished progression, they want to get their mounts and maybe a few more items and stuff, which is understandable, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked to get my mount and get like my Black Blood of Yasarj off Garrosh, but honestly, I'm more interested in making sure the Vodka reformation, it takes off, and they
Hmm.
need, they don't just need players to come back after it's in place. They need players to start it off too. So that's where
Yeah.
I'm in.
Are you reforming because of the introduction of the mythic raiding and it all being one kind of set difficulty, or are you just reforming because you know if you get together you can push for the world first no matter what the raid size?
I think a little bit of both. On top of that, some of the old vodka officers I think met at BlizzCon, and you know
Right. Okay.
just for rehashing and reminiscing, and got. I mean, when you play at this level, you can't really. It's hard to stop, and then it's hard to be casual. You try to be casual, and you just can't. You're just
Yeah.
back. You eventually go back to raiding. You either stop completely or you keep raiding.
Hmm.
And I think that's a bit of what happened. Like some of these players are just so good, and to not be competing is tragic.
Yeah. So sticking with kind of the BlizzCon theme, and I guess this is going to affect raiding in quite a massive way in the sense of min-maxing your character. What are your thoughts on the removal of hit, expertise, dodge, and parry?
Uh, I have a lot of faith in Blizzard,
Okay.
and I mean they like to make content easier, but they tend to still keep it fresh for the high end players. But I mean, I'm a little worried. Not only that, but I heard of they're removing dot snapshotting, which if you know what dot snapshotting is, it's like when you are a dot class and you cast a dot and it snapshots your current stats. And then
Okay.
even if those stats fall, that dot will continue to tick with the stats you had when you cast it.
Hmm.
And this isn't a big deal, but it's one of the things that separates, for instance, a pretty good Feral Druid or Shadow Priest or Warlock from
Hmm.
the best
Yeah.
Feral Shadow Priest, Warlocks, etc. And removing that, you're never gonna have to do things like, oh, I got 6 int buffs just procced off all my trinkets and stuff. Let me recast my dot. You just keep going. You would just
Yeah.
it'd just be this dull, boring rotation. You don't alter in any way. You don't, you're not micromanaging it.
Hmm.
And I don't know what I think about that.
No, it's just
I don't think it's a good
mind-boggling,
idea
really.
because, again, like I said, it's not game breaking. If you can't do it properly, you're
Hmm.
not losing. You're not going to be so underwhelming that you can't compete and you can't be in a guild. Most people won't notice it. It's just something that separates the really elite from,
Yeah.
the pretty decent. And I mean, it's occasionally abusable, I guess, but like last time I really seen it super abused was like back in tier 11 with Netharian when the Paragon or whatever used all the Feral Druids to
Yeah.
rips on with the buff. That was an instance of overpowered snapshotting.
Yeah.
Since then, I mean, really haven't seen anything quite like that.
Yeah. Do you think it's going to have much of a knock-on effect to say theory crafters because you're not going to be able to say get together on how to priest as an example and say, okay, well if I get my mastery and such to this, I can reduce my hit by this much, or if I change my hit stats, I can get this spec as well, or this stat even. Sorry.
It's going to make it so they don't have to do as much work. Right now, a lot of people
Yeah.
don't know this, but I want to take a second to give a shout out to some of the theory crafters over at How to Priest. Specifically, a few names that I know of, like Dry and Twin Top. Uh, but the amount of time they put into these best in slot lists and these theory crafting and math breakdowns and stuff is ridiculous. I mean, you're talking about
Yeah.
hours, days of simulations and number crunching, and it's ridiculous. And uh, I I like a lot of people. They don't know about them. They see me on the way
Hmm.
to them, and they think, I'm doing all this. But I try to give credit where credit is due. I do not take credit from these guys. I'm just the medium. Like, I can understand the math. I can put it into words and videos and guides that everyone else can understand in minutes and
Hmm.
not have to go through these long posts and threads and try to understand what they're saying. And that's where
Yeah.
I come in. That's my role in all this. Like, I don't I don't really necessarily do all the work. I just contribute to it, and I help spread it to the community. But
Hmm.
Yeah, those guys are brilliant. And there's others that I'm not naming.
Yeah.
I hope no one feels hurt about that, but there's a lot of them there. Those are just,
There are literally hundreds
yeah.
of brilliant theory crafters. It's a shame as well because I think it might ruin the game for them to an extent because that's what they love doing. That's probably why they play the game, so they can theory craft and get the best out of their characters. And they're losing that element of the game. It's not
Well, I believe
something
that'll still be there. I mean, I don't believe they're taking out all of like gymming and enchanting and stuff. Right? Just
they're reducing it
yeah.
quite a bit.
But even then, you're
Yeah.
still going to have even without gymming, enchanting, etc. You're still going to have some need for. I mean, like I said, it'll be a lot less going into it, but you'll still have multiple choices in items. I possibly where they'll have they'll be able to mathematically tell you which item is going to be your best in slot and stuff. And
Hmm.
you know, but like I said, time will tell. Maybe they'll scrap or
Yeah.
change or add something new to give it a little depth. We can hope. You know.
So moving away from BlizzCon now, I've got a few community questions for you, and then we can wrap this up. So the first one I've got is: how do you feel how do you feel about the Shadow Priest community as a whole? Personally, from what I've heard, it's a pretty strong community, and it's kind of got a lot of contributors giving information towards it.
Yeah, that's. I think the Shadow Priest community's been around for a while. It used to be shadowpriest.com.
Yeah.
A lot of contribution going on there, and eventually shadowpriest.com became like a sellout, I guess, and got overrun with ads, and people stopped using it, and it got all buggy, and it wasn't being run very well. And
Okay.
Veiled, who's a friend of mine, she's the owner and operator of How to Priest. She bought the site
Hmm.
and she started howtopriest.com, and it's growing, I like to think, and
Yeah.
people really seem interested in learning uh,
Mm.
regarding Shadow Priest and taking the initiative to seek out ways to do better. And people do that in a lot of classes, but I don't think every class has that resource. Like there are great theory crafters out there making things and doing things for other classes. I know
Yeah.
I play my Pharaoh Druid, and there's a great program I use, for instance, that helps me reforge my stats for the Rune of Reorigination trinket, which is very complicated, and it would be very difficult to do on your own. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, there's a lot of people doing a lot of great work out there, but I think Shadow Priest might have the best. So.
Yeah. I think websites and forums like that are pretty important for the community as well because if you're say a new player that's just hit 90 and you want to learn a bit more about Shadow Priest, you can go there, and then one day you might be raiding in one of the top end guilds because you've looked through that site, you've
Mm-hmm.
looked through hundreds of threads, and you've gotten to know the class just from that information.
Yeah. Um,
So the sorry,
oh,
go on.
sorry, my dog being a spaz.
Oh. So the next question I've got is: what do you think to the lack of DPS abilities available to Shadow Priest when you're moving about, as opposed to say a hunter that can cast their entire rotation, pretty
To
much?
be straight honest, I don't really understand what Blizzard was doing with Shadow Priest lately. I I'm able to do competitive DPS on some fights where Shadow Priest shine a little bit, but even when I'm going as hard as I can, it feels like it's different. Like back in Dragon Soul or Firelands, for instance, it was no problem for Shadow Priest to be at the top of the meters on a lot of fights.
Hmm.
If you were the best, you could compete with the other classes really easily. And
Yeah.
now it's like Shadow Priest used to be Mindseer. Our AOE was really strong, and now it's strong, but for instance, you look at an opening poll on Garrosh Heroic and all the ads come out, and you don't see Shadow Priests anywhere,
Yeah.
unless maybe they get really good
Hmm.
procs and their troll berserking is up. But you know, we just don't have burst capabilities. If we start a fight, you'll see if a Shadow Priest has 3 orbs or 2 orbs to start, you will see them up there with
Hmm.
other classes in the opening burst. But if they don't, they're nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
Which if this is the case, if you're always able to compete, if starting with 2 or 3 orbs, you're competing, not crushing, just up there competing, and without you're not,
Hmm.
then that stands to reason that maybe they should be able to start with at least 2 or 3 orbs, because that's the only way they're
Okay.
competitive. It wouldn't be overpowered, so why don't we have it? Um, So I don't know. I think I'm hoping next tier in the expansion we'll get some love back.
Mhm.
I'd like to be up there doing big things.
Yeah. Well, you do normally see a lot of changes, so you never know what they could do, really. I guess this next question kind of links in with what I've just asked you, but do you feel that the lack of Shadow Priest single target DPS is a little bit of a concern?
Oh yeah, certainly. I mean we've from time to time been a little bit lower on the totem pole for single target DPS just because we are a dot class
Mm-hmm.
and they can't make us too strong because sorry.
It's fine, don't worry.
Then our multi-dotting capabilities, we become overpowered. So they have to keep us in tune, which can be difficult. But I just don't think they have it right now because we're not the most powerful multi-dotters, and we're really weak on single target still. So they're not doing it right.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, we feel a little weaker, but I'm starting to, you know, get up there. But it is easily noticeable. For instance, once I got rank 1 on Malkarak heroic this tier earlier in the tier. I actually forgot about that one, but I believe I got rank 1 at 360,000 DPS or something, and that was like 50, 60,000 DPS lower than like the higher ones in the guild. You know, I was like way
Yeah.
down on the damage meters for my particular raid, but that was like the highest Shadow Priest parts at the time. So that's a little ridiculous when you do the best DPS your class can do that anyone in your class has done on a fight, and you're doing 60, 70,000 less than uh, other classes in the same fights. So
Yeah.
it's a little discouraging, to say the least.
Mm-hmm. I suppose in a high-end guild as well, if you're not able to push the same numbers as, say, a mage or a warlock, then they could always consider dropping you for that fight since
Oh yeah,
you're no use to them if you can't pull 80k more DPS, really.
got dropped for a lot of the single target fights. I was in a progression of most of the fights, and some of the top guilds use Shadow Priest in every fight because we bring other things to the table. Our off-spec
Yeah.
healing is pretty good without losing damage, really.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was out on Iron Jug, Thok, and Malkarak for progression, and like it's funny now because on Thok now I actually can do really good DPS and kind of keep up
Yeah.
because of how much uptime I can keep on the boss with dots and stuff. And now that during progression you use a lot more talents like Darkness Comes Light, the Mind Spike proc talent, and Mind Bender and stuff because they allow you more mobility and more time to focus on the mechanics of the fight. But as you get into the farm and stuff, you're pretty much start to convert to using Insanity on every fight because it's pretty much the best talent, and it just requires you to be able to make the most of it, you know. And once you're comfortable with the fight, you can stand still longer. You can maximize your uptime of it, and it really comes up. But now, if for instance people think, oh, I'd never use Insanity on Thok, he interrupts all the time, you know. But then you start to use it on him, and oh, suddenly you're doing a lot of DPS with it. Just gotta learn how to do it, I guess.
And the final question, I guess, is more personal towards you, not in a personal manner, but in a Shadow Priest manner. Do you preference going for the global haste, the global cooldown haste cap, or for the 14,873 breakpoint, or do you go for something else that's kind of a preference to you?
I'm actually currently doing the 50% global cooldown haste cap.
Okay.
I feel preferential towards it a little bit, but I have this tier tried out just about every combination. I've done the 50% with mixed crit and haste, crit and mastery. Sorry, I've done the um, GCD 50% with full mastery. I've done the DP plus 3, I call it because it's the third tick of the Iron Plague, the 14,000 whatever. But I've done that with full crit. I've done it with mixed crit mastery. So I've done a lot of different combos.
Mm-hmm.
I feel they're all pretty competitive. If you really wanted to min-max for an individual fight for a parse, you might be able to, pick one or the other. Uh, you'd have to sim for that specific encounter to know what would be the best. But basically, uh, the mixture of crit and mastery and one of your haste caps, I mean, it's pretty much going to be the most well-rounded on just about any fight, and it would take really good lineup of just luck and RNG to see any real difference between, you know,
Hmm.
certain stat reforges. Uh, Also, another note too, a lot of Shadow Priests always asking me how they should reforge and stuff, and right now, you can go to How to Priest and learn about it all. But Dry, one of the theory crafters from How to Priest, actually went and worked with the guy from Ask Mr. Robot, and so currently the Shadow Priest stats are up to date. You can just click on it and it'll reforge you, tell you
All
all the
right, brilliant.
gems, and it's really nice because then you don't have to worry about this massive mess that is currently our gems. And that's another thing with them taking out some of the stats. I mean, it it doesn't make a huge difference to some degree, but at the same time, it is very confusing. And like you really do currently in the game, you need computers and simulators just to figure out how to gem simple things. So, I mean, from Blizzard's standpoint, I can understand why they would want to simplify. It has become very complex. Like
Yeah.
right now, a lot of casters are gemming expertise and haste or mastery or crit instead of int and haste, mastery, and crit because our secondary stat values are at a high enough level that it's beneficial to gain more secondary stats this way as expertise equals hit for casters, and people don't understand this, and I have to explain it to a lot of people, and it can be confusing. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's all the questions I've got for you. I've thrown the plethora, well, probably not everything, but a good enough amount, I think, of questions. So it's time to shamelessly plug you, and then we finish. So if you want to watch Koilie stream at all, then you can find him at twitch.tv/Koilie. Again, probably not pronouncing it right, but it will be on or in the video description below. Click on it, go to it, subscribe to it, and all of that such. You can also stalk him on Twitter and Facebook. It's twitter.com/Koilie and facebook.com/Koilie Shadow. And
I'd like to say my
oh,
Twitter is actually Koiile. My name was taken on there, so yeah.
I'll make sure that's in the description as well for you, don't worry. And of course, if you are a priest, holy, shadow, or disc, then you can check out howtopriest.com. That website is pretty amazing. I don't play priest, but I've been through it and had a look, and some of the input from some community members it's amazing what lengths people do actually go to in order to get the best of their character and help other people. And shamelessly plugging myself, if you want to follow me, it's twitter.com/FlaskUpWow or facebook.com/GoodAsWow. Nice weird name change there. So once again, thank you very much for joining me and taking up quite a bit of your time as I noticed the Audacity timer on the side there. Thanks a lot.
That's
Hopefully
fine.
you and Vodka have much success in Warlords of Draenor. It's going to be interesting. Very
And
interesting.
perhaps we can do a post progression race after the first tier of Mythic and
Ah, that
have
would be
a
nice.
good year of time to let you know how that all gone. I figure it'll be probably about that long till
Yeah,
we get all
it
up and running, maybe less.
probably will be. If you end up going to BlizzCon next year, I'll most likely see you there.
That would be great.
We did come to a bit of an abrupt end here, but I'd like to thank everybody for actually listening to this interview, and stay tuned to flaskup.com for future interviews.